And the big news coming in today, the Department of Consumer Affairs is going to come up with a framework for service charges levied by restaurants. The department held a meeting today with industry stakeholders chaired by the secretary. The centre has clarified that levying of service charge should be optional and consumers cannot be made to feel embarrassed over it. We had reported earlier that the government will issue guidelines against the practice. Samir, who has all the details of the story, filed this report.
Yes, definitely this important meeting on the issue of service charge being levied by the restaurants. The meeting that was chaired by Secretary, Ministry of Consumer Affairs with the key stakeholders, the association, Restaurant Association. This meeting is over. That went for almost an hour. But the government is quite clear on its stand. The government has clearly said that this levying of service charge is not legal. This is illegal, though it is voluntary in nature. But the way restaurants are charging it from consumers, this is quite illegal. And the most important point is that the government has said that they will soon come up with a regulatory, with a legal framework to, stop all this illegal practice. So government in this meeting has clearly indicated that government will come up with a legal framework to stop this practice of imposing service charge on the consumers by the restaurants. So this is the big development that has taken place, because we have seen that continuously the restaurants have taken the stance that impose this entire service charge. It is quite legal in nature. They are quite correct on their part to impose this service charge, but now the government has made it quite clear that they will come up with a legal framework very soon, and this will definitely aim to put a stop to completely prohibit the restaurants from imposing this service charge. Now, along with this, what you are also getting to understand that government has indicated that this entire practice of taking this service charge from the consumer is quite illegal. Government has said that on April 2017, they have clearly made the guidelines which makes that this entire service charge mechanism.
President of the NRAI with me on the show this evening, Pradeep Shetty, Joint Honourable Secretary, FHRAI, speaking with us, as is Rekha Agarwal, Advocate of Consumer Law. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us this evening on the India development debate. Mr. Suri, let's begin. Is there clarity now that restaurants have been asked very clearly, in no uncertain terms, not to add that service charge to the bill? If people want to tip, they'll tip.
So good evening for having me today on your show. Just to clarify, and I think your colleague that just basically reported the news has already stated that the framework decision-making on what is allowed and what is not allowed has not been passed. So to say something is illegal is incorrect, right? So service charge being charged is not illegal, point one, just to clarify that. Secondly, we, as the NRAI and our members and the fraternity in general, most of the organized sectors, members of the sector, have on their menu, and before you enter the premise, a disclosure that states that service charge is added on your bill. That's point one. Second, when a menu is presented to a customer, to a consumer, it states the price of the menu, and it states that that service charge is going to be added. So for anyone to say it's illegal, that's incorrect, because the law doesn't say it's illegal. So there's a law which does not say it's illegal. So for it to be defined as illegal, I think that is incorrect.
I'm just looking at the press release that the PIB put out today, Mr. Suri, and it's fairly clear in this that they're talking about an earlier rule which made it clear that service charge cannot be levied and people cannot be asked to pay it. Yes, they are going to come up with a new framework to check service charge levied by restaurants. So I think we need to clarify this. And I'm reading from it. It says the Department of Consumer Affairs will soon come up with a robust framework to ensure strict compliance by stakeholders with regard to service charge levied by restaurants and hotels, as it adversely affects consumers on a daily basis. Then they go back and refer to a guideline dated 21st April 2017, published by the Department of Consumer Affairs, which says placing an order by a customer amounts to his agreement to pay prices in the menu along with applicable taxes. Charging for anything other than the aforementioned without express consent of the consumer would amount to unfair trade practice under the Act. They seem pretty clear, Mr. Suri. There's no ambiguity in this press
under contractual law. and we have an honorable lawyer on the panel with us, we have disclosed that we are charging service charge. And you yourself right now said that the government themselves have said that they're going to create a framework, which technically means there is no law. So when it comes to the legal side of it, there is no law. Now let's come to the practicality of this. I mean, I'm a consumer, you're a consumer, we're all consumers, right? What is actually being charged? There's a service charge being charged, which is disclosed. The choice of entering a premise, the choice of ordering the food. So once you order the food on the table, that means you've agreed to the prices that are listed on the menu. Second, you've agreed to the service charge being added. It's not that you didn't know service charge is applicable. If service charge is not something that you want to pay for, then you have to make that decision that if you're willing or not willing to dine there. That's point one. Second, we must also understand this is a very vast industry. It's organized, self-organized, in many ways. In the totality of the industry, I would assume 25% of restaurants and hotels charge service charge. There are reasons for that, right?
But
the applicability.
How's that relevant, sir? How's that relevant to what the Department of Consumer Affairs is saying, that what percentage charges or doesn't charge? I want to come down to the point, and I think before we move ahead on whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether the industry will take it to court, we have to understand what has exactly happened. Let me just get Mr. Shetty's view in here. Mr. Shetty, great to have you on the show as well. Just on this point, and I'm again reading, this is the official press release from the government on this, and they talk about a 2017 guideline, because this issue had come up even then. They say by placing an order, a customer agrees to pay prices in the menu along with applicable taxes. Are you saying the service charge is equivalent to prices in the menu?
Pradeep, you're on mute.
Yeah, hi, sorry.
Yeah.
Coming back to what you asked, Kabir, and also to me, the point is that 2017-18 was an advisory by the department based on certain consumer complaints that they were facing this problem of service charge being levied on their bill. Based on such an advisory, this advisory was circulated widely to members, and about 10 to 15% stopped levying because it was an advisory. And even the industry came out and said that, listen, if somebody really has a problem with service and he's unable to pay or he doesn't want to pay, it will waived up, and it even happens today. Going to the next, so therefore it was an advisory. There was no rule or a law that was imposed or brought in to prevent any such thing. Now, to go into the second part of the question was what the advisory today talks about. Based on certain complaints, a meeting was called of all stakeholders by the department today. In the meeting, we were heard and we made out a case as to why there is no intervention required. One, there is no law that prohibits imposing of a service charge by a restaurant. Secondly, we cited judgments of the National Consumer Forum and including other courts to say, one, service charge is not illegal and it has been upheld by the court. Second, contractually, how when somebody enters a hotel or a restaurant, he's bound by what is written in the menu, because then there is no end to it. Somebody may even dispute the price of a product that is sold. These things were told. They heard us, they heard the consumer representatives, and they seem to have formed an opinion now. Now that is the opinion that the department has formed. Based on that opinion, they appear to say that they will formulate certain guidelines, and those will be up for us to agree or to challenge or to do whatever.
Will you challenge in court? It's clear what the guidelines will say, which direction they're tilting. Will you challenge in court?
No, but that we need to see, right? Okay. I mean, if it is something agreeable, like we suggested, if you have a problem with nomenclature, we change the nomenclature. But this department can't target only our industry, because this is prevalent in every industry. Not that it justifies. There are convenience charges, there are airport charges, there are delivery charges. Everywhere these additional charges are coming, and there is a reason behind all of them, which I can't go into now.
No, we'll go into it in a bit, because it's important to go into the reasons. But I just want to get Rekha Agarwal on board. So, we first set the stage on what exactly has been said today. Ms. Agarwal, now, do you agree that today the Department of Consumer Affairs has clarified that they aren't allowed to levy service charge, or is it still in the realm of suggestion/guideline?
I fully agree with the decision which has been taken today. In fact, it has now become even more clear, after the 2017 guidelines, or rather advisory, as the other speakers spoke. Now, today, the government has again made, the Ministry of Food Affairs has made it very, very, Consumer Affairs has made it absolutely.
I think you've gone on mute, ma'am.
Untenable.
Yeah.
So, as Mr. Suri said, that you cannot use the word illegal for it. You may or may not use the word illegal. The fact is that the ministry has absolutely clarified it today that these charges cannot be charged by any stretch of imagination. Once a customer enters a hotel or a restaurant, to say that it's like a contract, and if he sees that the service charges are being levied and it is unacceptable to that customer, he can simply walk out. I don't buy that argument. This is the same as like a customer availing a loan from a bank and signing a set of papers, and the rest of the things are in fine print. So there are various judgments of the Honorable National Commission for Consumer Affairs, as well as the Honorable Supreme Court of India, where they've said that such kind of contracts are absolutely unilateral, one-sided contracts that are arbitrary and tilted in favor of the service provider. Whether it is the hotel industry or whether it's the building industry or the bank industry. So, where the customer has got no choice, but he avails of a certain facility, you simply cannot.
Okay, let me come to the why now. Mr. Suri, just a couple of things to clarify. And what consumers have been going and saying is, first of all, you go to a restaurant with the assumption that you're going to be served. If you're going and sitting down, unless it's very clearly a sort of a self-service place, a fast food joint, where they give you a token number and you go and pick up your food. You sit at a table because someone is going to come and serve you. That's part of the experience. Otherwise, you would order the food home and eat it there. So one argument could be that the act of service is part of the product that you're giving. Secondly, if the purpose of service charge is solely to compensate or to show a gratitude of some sort to the servers, why not leave it to the discretion of your patrons? Why force them?
So, ma'am, to answer your first part, you're right. When it is self-serve, there is no service charge applicable. It's not charged. If you look at your delivery bills, when you order home, the restaurant does not charge you service charge, even though service is being provided. We must understand service is not only provided by the service giver, which is the lady or the man that's servicing you on your table. Please understand there's a chain behind it. There are people in the kitchen that are involved in service. There are people that clean the dishes that are involved in service. There are people that open the door that are involved in service. There's the valet service that provides service. It's a full chain.
So I'm assuming they're paid, and that's part of your business cost.
Of course they are paid. They're paid. That is a fixed cost. That is there. This is an incentive that is given to them, which is applicable because that is then distributed amongst the staff, right? And I think in the earlier part, you had mentioned that, how do we justify that this is actually being done? Most companies have this part of their balance sheet. It's the revenue that is generated through service charge is booked as income in your books, and on that you pay GST to the government. So if it was illegal, then how is GST being?
No, the question is not about legality. The question is, how do I know that the people who have been working on that shift or behind the scenes on that day when I have dined in are getting it? There is, if I want to tip someone, and it's great to tip. I think it's good to tip. We should be tipping, but it's a transaction, right? There's been great service. I want to display my gratitude. Now, this goes into the space where there's no transparency. I don't know how that is being accounted for. I'm not going to go and look at the balance sheet of every restaurant I dine in. Don't you think there is a lack of accountability and transparency there? If that's the case, maybe keep a prominent tip jar.
Yes,
Mr. Suri. No, let Mr. Suri respond, and then Rekha wants to come in as well. Yes.
No, so tip is in addition if you want to give a tip over service charge, right? So if you feel that someone has performed great service and you're happy and you're elated with what your experience was, that is your discretion. Because what happens is when you give a tip to one individual, it does not go to everyone else. That individual will take the tip for himself. We have to have an equitable sharing of service charge for the entire staff. That's point one. Second is, please understand, we're the second largest employers of human capital in India. We're the second largest employers after the railways in India. right? We are employing and bettering the lives of everyone, unskilled labor, skilled labor, right? We have to make sure their incentive, you pay them a certain set fees. You have to create a structure. We as a body have members. Members are creating the infrastructure, which is the hospitality space. And we as consumers, I mean, I'm a consumer, you're a consumer. I said that, right, in the past, that we all have to contribute to nation building. We have to contribute towards building of employment.
Okay, let me get Rekha in. Let me get Rekha in. I will not comment on this, but I don't know if restaurant levying service charge equals to contribution to nation building. That's maybe a bit of a stretch. But let me just get
You're
Rekha
contributing
in.
towards employment. You're contributing to bettering people's lives.
I'm
you're
doing that by coming to the restaurant and availing of your service. One sec, Miss Rekha. Miss Rekha, yes, please come in.
Sorry, Mr. Suri, I don't agree with your, stand that, this is like an incentive and, the customer pays, to all the people who are behind the curtains, so to say. When a
your voice is gone.
Something, a sandwich should make 50 rupees outside. He may end up paying 400 to 500 rupees inside the restaurant or hotel. So all the overhead expenses which you're talking about, the person who opens the door, the waiters, the waitresses, the servers, the managerial staff, the cooks. So everybody, as you said, needs an incentive. So that incentive is taken care of. That is your problem. That is not my problem. You can't hold that against me that, look, you have to give an incentive to those people. You take care of your, how you manage that incentive. That's your problem. That is the problem with the restaurant owner. Once I pay 4 to 5 times cost for something which costs, say, as I just give an example, the sandwich may cost 50 rupees outside. When I go to a 5-star hotel, I may end up paying 500 rupees for that same sandwich platter. So when I paid that amount of money, that extra money which I'm paying, I'm conscious of the fact that I'm going to a 5-star hotel and I'll have to pay a huge amount of money. So that extra money which I'm doling out from my pocket, that takes care of all the overhead expenses, the electricity, the cleanliness, the hospitality, people who are taking care, the waiters, the cooks, the chefs.
Okay. Mr. Shetty, we get the point, ma'am. We get the point. You're saying the markup on the actual item includes everything else. So why the service charge? Mr. Shetty, can you respond to that specific point? You're obviously not paying cost on whatever you're ordering in a restaurant, right? There's a markup because you're paying for the experience, and all of these individuals and their roles contribute to that experience. So where is the scope? What is the logic of the extra bit of service charge? Why the insistence on it, Mr. Shetty?
See, first of all, there is nothing deceptive or hidden. So therefore, one has to come to terms with that fact. Of course, now I'll get back to what you are saying. So there is firstly nothing hidden, nothing deceptive. It is purely disclosed. It is known to everybody. Secondly, 20% of the entire restaurant industry charging really does not make it uncompetitive, because there are a number of them. So let's say if a pizza place, there'll be 10 of them who do not charge a service charge, and there'll be 1 of them who will. So there is ample opportunity and option available with a consumer. In fact, if I levy service charge, I must be bold enough to ensure to be able to be aware that some people will walk out of here. Finally, on the point that you're saying, I want to give you a clarification, but it may or may not be acceptable to consumers or to you. It is a socio-economic measure, and we have a real problem with workforce and human capital. Getting people to work for this kind of jobs are not easy in India, and this is a phenomenon which is happening worldwide, and because of which this whole concept has given rise to. What service charge levying separately enables me is to show the prospective employee that this is what you will be entitled to in addition to your salary, which gives him an incentive or an encouragement to work here, because I really find it difficult to get people to work in this industry.
Essentially, as the diner, you're making me pay part of your salary overhead.
No, but if I don't do it, I will inbuild it in my cost anyways.
So do that. At least I'm clear about what I'm paying for.
Yes.
No. I told you may not accept, but I'm saying this is the real problem behind it. If I apportion it separately, I'm able to show him. And there is lastly, there is no problem about accountability because it is accountable. CBDT has notified that service charge, you do it, you have to pay tax on it. Tax is paid, it is disclosed in our books of accounts, and we have employees and their unions to ensure that there is full accountability and transparency. So nobody here needs to worry where it is going. It will definitely go to where it's supposed to go. But in terms of business, to inbuild it in the cost and then to distribute it, it is difficult because there are many other implications to it which we can't discuss, which are individual business. You may be right in saying that inbuild everything in your cost.
No, I mean, the idea is not to be combative. The idea is to truly understand. The idea is to truly understand, because the fact is that this issue has come up again after 2017 because diners do feel that they are being forced to tip. You're saying it's not a tip, but the general perception is they're forcing me to tip. I might not be happy with the service. Then you're expecting me to sit there and say, hey, I don't want to pay this, which a lot of people might be embarrassed to do. And these are all true things. Mr. Suri, how many people actually in your restaurants come and say, I won't pay the service charge?
Ma'am, if there is a problem with service or if there's a problem with an item that has been ordered, it is an art. See, you have to understand, we're a business that is dependent on people, right? If there is no customer, there is no business. So it is in our nature to make sure that every customer that walks in is happy before they leave. That is our nature. That's point one. If there is a stray instance where someone is not happy with what they've got in regard to the product, or they're not happy with the service, then that is tackled and taken care of. There, the dish is either replaced or it is removed from the bill. Whatever has to be done is done, right? Now, service charge in general is not an Indian phenomenon. Service charge in general is a global phenomenon, right? Globally across the world, right? We're talking about here in 10%. In New York City, they charge 20%. In London, they charge 14%. So it is a global phenomenon, point one. It's not that only the Indian restaurants are charging service charge. So that's point one.
I'm not sure that helps your cause because the diners are sitting here.
No, I'm just...
our hospitality and our food is perhaps much better So
if it is better, ma'am, what I'm going to say is there's ever so more reason to contribute to service charge to the staff.
If I feel like the question is
coming back to your original point in regard to why is it all not clubbed together, right? Yeah. Let's just answer that.
Do that. Yeah.
There's a lot of other things which, like Pradeep mentioned. For example, if it's clubbed together, rentals, for example, a lot of premises are on revenue share. What that means is what should have gone to the staff will now go to the landlord. For example, if it's clubbed together, what the aggregators charge you as a transaction cost, which is a percentage to your revenue, would go to the aggregators. So who loses over here is the staff. Who are we trying to support is the staff. So by adding the pricing into the bill, it only makes less available for the staff. Here we're trying to solve a problem about providing staffing, providing better service, but by adding it all together as one price, what that does is there's other people that take the revenue away from you, which basically indirectly means the staff get less.
Okay. As a result. We spoke today. We spoke today to diners after this decision came out, to restaurant patrons. I just want to play out for you a cross-section of what people said before we continue the discussion any further.
It's a good thing as well because I went to one of the good restaurant chain and I requested them to cancel out the service charge, but they didn't. I mean, I was supposed to pay tip. I was definitely going to pay tip, but the 10% on considering the amount of the bill amount which we have was not that justifying. So yeah, it's a good thing, to be honest. Because we pay via our will. I mean, how the service is, we might pay more than 10% also. That might happen. But it totally depends on service and we should be having that authority rather than, they levying us 10%.